This episode of our podcast is brought to you by Duliban Insurance. If you live in Ontario, Canada, and are looking for the best price and coverage for your Tesla, give Duliban a call at 1-855-385-4226 or visit their website at dulibaninsurance.com/Tesla. It's time for the podcast again. I hate saying good morning or good night because you never know when people are listening. So anyways, thanks for joining in. Listen, if you guys are listening to the podcast for the first time, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the feed, whatever it happened to be and stuff, because we talk about Tesla stuff on here. Try to make this a weekly thing as much as possible, but sometimes life gets in the way. But I have two guys joining me tonight. The usuals, Eric Camacho and Ian Pavelko. How you doing, guys?
Aloha!
Bonsoir tout le monde.
We should start off with just letting everybody know this will be the last podcast of this year. We're going to take next week off because it is, the holiday season stuff. We'll be back in early January. And, a bunch of us will be in Florida at the end of January, so I'm really looking forward to that because we got dumped on again. More snow. Lovely. So, yeah, looking forward to some
If you're in
some
Canada,
warm weather.
Isn't that kind of the expectation? That you're going to
Yes,
get
But it doesn't
we
make
have
it that we want to.
we have a birthright to complain about it. That's part of the deal here.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Yeah, we don't, just because we're born in it doesn't mean we have to like it.
No.
So, all right, listen, we have a lot of questions that came in tonight. I want to say thank you to everybody who submitted questions. We'll get to them a little bit later in the show, but because we have so many of them, we're probably going to do a power round and just kind of plow through them as fast as we can. There's a little bit of Tesla news we want to cover, so let's jump into it here. The first thing that's on everybody's lips this week, or last couple of days anyways, is this new power boost upgrade that Tesla has offered to everybody for the first time not for the first time as an after-purchase upgrade, but the first time they've actually made it available through the Tesla app. Previously, you'd have to buy something like FSD, and you had to go through your Tesla account. Of course, you can do that on the Tesla account, but if you've upgraded your app, and the latest version is 3.10.2, if I remember correctly, you'll see there's an upgrades button down there. You can tap on that, and it will show you two tabs, eligible and purchased, and that way you can see what you can buy. So literally, it's also tied to Apple Pay on iOS devices. I don't have an Android, so I don't know what payment options they have through that thing. But if you see the latest update, so you can buy FSD and you can buy this new power boost. Now, there's been a ton of confusion on the internet as to who qualifies for this power boost and who doesn't. So I think we need to spend a little bit of time there because there have been some questions that were submitted that we will kind of skip those because we're going to try and answer them right now because there's a lot of confusion about this. So first things first, Ian and I both have performance Model 3s, and we just got a 5% power boost over the last couple of software updates. So for us, there is no power boost that we can buy at this point. The only thing we can buy is FSD, right? I bought FSD. I'm good. There's nothing that shows up in my account. However, there's been a lot of people that have been reporting that cars that have all-wheel drive or the Performance Minus, we have Performance Plus, I don't know, whatever, Performance Minus, whatever those cars were, the ones that they made the batch that didn't have all the features on it, they can get the performance boost. But we are seeing some people that say, I can get it for my SR Plus. The thing is that it's tied down with FSD, and it still shows a value of 0. So I don't know if it's a glitch in Tesla's system or whatever the case may be. But anyways, the bottom line, and we have a whole thread of this going on in the forum. I'll put a link in the podcast in the video description. You guys can follow along with it. But the rule seems to be that rear-wheel drive, long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3s don't qualify for this. You really have to have a dual-motor car. Yet, of course, yes. So you never know. So it really ties into Tesla's software as a service thing that's coming out now, because now they're charging for data packages now for the people that that had their 1 year grace period. Of course, I'm still under the 1 year. Ian, you're still under the 1 year. So. And, that was another question that came up last week as well as this week. If we're in Canada, nothing shows up in the account yet. I think it's just a matter of you haven't gotten around to you guys yet. So, anyways, I'm still okay for the data thing for, I remember, let me see here, I'm only 3 months into my car, so I'm not worried about that. So that's the first instance of it. Of course, now we've got the monthly, not the monthly thing there, but the for the Power Boost upgrade, which is a $2,000 option US, by the way. So, anyways, what do you think? What do you guys think? I mean, is this a good thing? I mean, I did a poll, an informal poll on Twitter. I think it was earlier today, on how many people pulled the trigger, and it seems to be divided. Half the people are like, it's not really worth the half a second. Other people are like, yeah, I bought it. So I don't know. Thoughts?
Be curious to see how it plays out. And it was exactly the same thing you were saying, Trev. It seemed split. There's a lot of people who bought the dual motor car, not necessarily because they wanted that level of performance, but they just wanted, the dual motor traction for inclement weather, and are amply satisfied with the amount of power it has. Because for the average human, it's plenty quick enough. Like, I can't really justify needing the amount of. It's really a bragging rights thing. It's still it's at the limit. It can be frightening at times still for somebody who's driven the car for a year.
Yeah,
so you don't really have to have it. But I mean, it's fun to say, my car is now in the 3-second bracket, which a standard dual motor now will get down to 3.9 with this upgrade. So you're getting close to where the performance car was at the outset at 3.5. So, for 2Gs, you couldn't buy that amount of performance upgrade in an ICE car any way, shape, or form. Maybe there's a couple of turbo cars that would do that, but that's a big jump for a car that's already in the 4-second bracket. So I think the value is there. And I just want to add, to your point about the SR and certainly the long-range rear-wheel drive cars, somebody today posted, and I apologize for not being able to point out exactly who, but I've seen a couple of sources say that somewhere in the code in one of the sites, they were able to somehow figure out that there is the possibility that's going to be coming for the long-range rear-wheel drive, and it's an equal upgrade. So I think a lot of this has to do with the rear motor, with the partial permanent magnet switch reluctance motor in back getting the majority of the boost. But that's just me kind of theorizing.
Yeah, I ran across that post. I was just going through some of the posts on the forum here, and yeah, somebody did, looks like they did a video on it and showed that there is definitely some stuff in the source code. So anyways, anything's a possibility. This is not the first time that Tesla's going to do something like this. The fact they actually put it in the app tells us that, there's going to be some other stuff coming in the future. I mean, there's other people that have been talking about Tesla doing, software as a service. I mean, this is kind of a preamble to more things coming like the robotaxi fleet and stuff, although I think that's still a little ways away. I don't think that's going to happen next year, but that's just my personal opinion. Anyway, Eric, any thoughts on this? Or
well, the two things I think about is, one, I'm glad they're making it easier that you can get to the upgrades portion from the app and literally add a feature to your car with one tap, with one click, if you will. We see that with checkout services all the time. You simply just go to upgrades, you select what you want, you press the Apple Pay button, and then you're done for iOS devices. The other thing I think about with the $2,000 is it just doesn't. I mean, for me, as someone who doesn't have a performance car and really is not into performance vehicles the way that Ian is, Ian's likening to performance cars is my likening to vanilla ice cream. If it's available, I'm happy to give it a try. But I think, when I look at the $2,000, I think, is it worth that for just cutting it by half a second? And that's really the 0 to 60 performance. I mean, I think your daily commute, you wouldn't notice that great of a difference unless you're constantly, going from 0 to whatever acceleration you want to get to. Is it worth $2,000 for someone to shave off a fraction of a second? Maybe. How many people actually buy into this? I don't know. We'll certainly find out, I'm sure, in some report what people have purchased. Bless you, Ian. For those that don't know, he's on video. He muted himself, which is such a professional. I'm skeptical as to how many folks are going to do this. I know your survey, your unscientific survey, was certainly indicative that the majority audience is split on this. And I'm probably in that camp of people who kind of go, eh. I mean, if $4,000 gets me full self-driving, you think it's, that's kind of worth more value, I think, than $2,000 for half a second of extra power.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I know for me, I probably would not spend the money for that extra half a second. I mean, I am fortunate I have Performance Model 3. It's plenty fast. I mean, I would kill myself on the roads today.
You certainly put in more than $2,000 for that.
Exactly. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, if I had a lower end car, and I didn't maybe spend the money on FSD, I might see a value in it. But anyways, I hope that answers the question for some of the people that answered that a little bit later. But anyways, we're keeping our eyes peeled on this because there's definitely going to be some more stuff coming down the pike. All right, so let's get in. We got some more Tesla news to talk about here. So Connecticut. One of those states that says thou shalt not sell Teslas here, along with Texas and Michigan. There's some problem states out there. Anyways, there's a great article. I'll put a link to it in the podcast in the video description here by our great friends at Teslarati, who basically, and it's a long article, I'll let you guys read it, but they basically explain why Connecticut They can't sell their cars in Connecticut. Again, dealer lobbies fighting with the government and, putting money into the pile denying Tesla a license to sell their cars. However, Tesla has found a way around that. So it turns out that Tesla can actually do leases in Connecticut because they don't need a dealer license to do that. So they're actually permitted to lease the cars. They just can't talk about purchasing. So kudos on Tesla for finding a way. I mean, that's the thing with Tesla. I mean, if they can, they'll find a way to get around it. Hopefully someday cooler heads will prevail in Connecticut and those other states that don't allow the sales and finally get their collective you-know-what together and say, look, this is in the consumer's best interest. The dealer lobbies can deal with it. There's not a single instance of any dealer in the U.S., traditional franchise dealer, that's gone out of business because Tesla is selling the cars direct. It's a different business model. They don't have existing franchises. We've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast before. It's not an issue. It's just an issue of these dealer lobbies who have a lot of money to throw around, and they just say, well, these guys got to play by the same rules. But the thing is you can't play by the same rules when your car is not based on service. So anyways, I've said enough about that. Anyways, any thoughts on this? But I think it's great for Connecticut. At least the people can actually lease a car.
Hooray, loopholes.
Yes, exactly. Smoke them if you got them. Like, any way you can get the cars out there, it makes it easier. Power to the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, if this is a thing to you, I mean, listen, the people in Connecticut have traditionally had to go and buy their cars in New York. I mean, it's not that far for most people because the states are small, but it's still an inconvenience. So, anyways, as usual, if you have an issue with this, take it up with your local representative politely, but firmly ask them to, reconsider these laws and stuff. Anyways, like I said, I'll put a link. You guys can read about it, but it's looking a little bit more promising there. All right, in other Tesla news. Again, courtesy from our friends at Teslarati, Tesla just opened a 15,000th Supercharger stall. So according to supercharge.info, which is a fantastic website for tracking all things Supercharger, by the way, I also link it on the forum. So at the very bottom of the forum homepage, there's a set of a section for links. And Supercharge info is one of those on there. If you click it, it takes you right to the map, and you can zoom in and zoom out. Anyways, it's awesome. So it looks like Tesla crossed the mark between December 7th and 14th, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. They show currently 15,071 open stalls. Let's see here. The availability, of Supercharger stalls has spiked by nearly 300% from January 2017 until mid-December of this year. So they've been on a real tear. We're seeing, the last couple of weeks, we've seen almost a Supercharger open in Canada almost every 2 days, and that's mostly filling in the Trans-Canada. So it's getting filled in. Again, may not be finished by the end of the year as they promised, but it's looking really good. I would say probably by early spring it'll be hopefully finally finished.
There's a Wawa not far from where my office is in Deerfield Beach that's going to be having a supercharger there too. Mind you, Tesla's their intent is to open a supercharging station somewhere in the world every 12 to 18 hours. So right, your mind goes, that's crazy,
what?
Right?
Wait, what?
But mind you, the number of stalls at each of these stations can vary. You might find some that have 6, some that have 32. Like, they're totally different.
Yeah.
But to see this high of a number in that short time frame, you mentioned from 2017 to roughly the last several weeks. Well, mind you, the Model 3 has a lot to do with that. They knew they had to ramp up production and get these stations opened if they're going to actually mass produce this car and get it delivered around the world. If you're going to have that many drivers, you have to give them places to charge it. So it totally makes sense that those are correlative numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder how many are V3 now.
Not as many as we'd like, but they're getting there. I mean, I know Florida's going to be getting a V3. I know that there's other states getting them too. California,
I know
Vegas,
two of them in Ontario have opened in the northern part. I think
Yeah.
it's Sudbury, and I forget the other one is. They both opened. Those are definitely V3. And the one in Regina, Saskatchewan, is definitely V3. So I think most of those in the prairies that they're putting in are certainly going to be V3. Ian and I actually had this discussion a couple of days ago when he was in town and had to go back home, that there is a supercharger stop that we generally stop at between where I live and where Ian is out in the Montreal area called Kingston. And it's one of the very first 2 superchargers that opened Canada. The other one's in Cornwall. And those are only 6 stalls. And it's such a busy corridor that it's not uncommon to show up there, and sometimes they're actually full. And I mean, I've showed up there a couple times when I had to wait. I mean, the wait's only been about 5 minutes, not that big of a deal. But that is one location that needs an upgrade for sure. Either they go across the street to the movie theater, or they expand that thing. It's in a little shopping mall and stuff. That's a location that really needs somewhere 16 to 20.
Like right next to the Taco Bell would be my vote.
Well, Taco Hell. They did open Belleville
first.
Yeah, they did open Belleville, which is 20 stalls, if I remember correctly, and that's about 75 kilometers before Kingston. Yeah. And they're supposed to open another one, which is in Brockville, which is on the other side.
Yep.
And that one's been on the books forever, and it's still in the permit stage. I don't know what the heck's going on. That one would really help alleviate the Kingston situation, because in most cases, you can make it into Belleville, depending on how you drive. And I know, Ian, you want to say something about this here in a second, because you have a story.
I definitely do.
Right? And I've said this before with my Model X, it was not efficient. So a lot of times I had to make a stop in Belleville and then make another stop in Kingston in order to make the large leap over to Cornwall, which is a pain in the butt, by the way, because it's literally 10 kilometers in town. So it's
that one's way the hell off.
I hate Cornwall with a passion. Anyways, Ian, you had a funny story this week.
For listeners, we love Cornwall, the town. Just the Supercharger location sucks.
That's true. Yes, there's
a lot of our American friends are like, "What the hell are they talking about?"
Sorry. We have our things. I mean, there's a great chicken place right beside it there too. All right, Ian, tell us your story, because this is good.
Yeah. So I mean, as anyone who follows me on Twitter, I like to push the limits of what the car can do in a lot of respects. And one of the things is, how far can you go on a charge? And last year, when I went down to Florida, I got to test that on a number of occasions. And I mean, I absolutely love the consumption graph in this car. It's so incredibly precise. You can literally dial it right down to, I'm going to arrive with 1 or 2%, and damned if it's not exactly bang on the number when you get there. So I'm not talking about, just what it plots originally. I'm talking the actual graph that reads down as you're traveling.
The green line.
Yeah, the perfect line that it predicts, and then the line you're actually getting. Yeah, on the trip meter.
On the trip.
Exactly. The trip meter consumption graph is the bottom line, is what you're really doing. And that one is super accurate. So anyway, I was on my way to Toronto to visit some clients, and this was on Tuesday, and a huge squall blew through. There was pandemonium all over the roads, trucks going off left, right, and center, accidents everywhere. I wound up being super late. And with the cold and the conditions, everything, I was pushing the car hard. And it kept telling me, you better stop in Kingston, or you better slow down, or you better do something, buddy, but you're not going to make it. Hard-headed as I am, I pushed on through. And this was the first time ever that I hit 0% before I even made it to the exit off the highway. Oh, yeah. So this is like, And I mean, there's videos out there, and thank you everyone who responded on Twitter and said, hey, there's a couple of The Edge, or Their Edge, I'm sorry, is I think the Twitter handle, chimed in and said, look, there's all these different videos of people who've gone many, many miles. I think, he said there's one from Teslanomics that was at least 10 miles or something past 0, which is amazing to me. But that's maybe under ideal conditions, when the weather's, but I mean, I was using a huge amount of energy. I was pushing like 400 watt hours per kilometer. Yeah, per mile. Yeah, it was about 260, 265 per kilometer. So that works about to 400 per mile. So yeah, I had no faith that I was going to necessarily make it the extra 3.5, 4 kilometers to actually get to the stall. But praise Buddha, I did. So I don't know how much further it would have gone, but yeah. Yeah,
I would imagine you're driving and Christopher Cross is singing on the radio. It's all right. I think I'm gonna make it. For some reason, that's what I'm thinking. You're like, you know what? You're right, Chris Cross. We're gonna make it. You and I are gonna make it together.
Yeah. I would caution people, do not expect that there's a buffer. When it says 0, you better damn well be ready at a supercharger. It's 0. But I'm never going down that low. I've been down to 3 before.
I was going to say, Ian's the kind of person that wants to challenge and challenge and challenge, because he that internet meme of challenge accepted? If you look very carefully, that is a lifelike drawing of Ian.
Possibly.
So there you go.
All right. Moving on, we have some Cybertruck news. We're not going to really get into a lot of Cybertruck stuff, but Elon did answer someone on Twitter today. There was a whole thread going on by someone named Alex Sibilla on Twitter, and he had given everybody a huge list of features they'd like to see on the Teslas. And Elon did chime in and said there's some good ideas in there, and I agree. But right underneath that, someone named Lex Acevedo asked, can the Cybertruck pump the AC into the truck bed when the tonneau cover is closed, that's the roll, the bread box thing, for sleeping and camping, is there access from the second row? Also, does it have the biodefense filter system? Elon responded. He said yes, probably, and partially. So those are the only updates and extra information that we have on the Cybertruck. So fear not, folks. There's definitely going to be some extra features that they haven't talked about that they may implement during the final engineering process between now and when production starts. So if we can, we will certainly ping Elon and try and get some more information. All right. Next bit of information, I want to give a shout out to our good friend Sandy Munro, or not Sandy Munro, well, Sandy Munro and Sean Mitchell from All Things EV YouTube channel. He gets around. He seems to have a very good relationship with Sandy at Munro Associates in Detroit, Michigan. Sandy is the guy who does tear parts for different cars and sells the information to competitors. Anyways, so he had us sat down, and I highly recommend you actually watch the video. I'll put a link to it, where he sat down for about 45 minutes and talked to Sandy about his thoughts on the Cybertruck and stuff. Very informative video. Yeah, so kudos to Sean for sitting down and getting that done. I would have loved to have been there because I would have peppered him with a lot more technical stuff, but that's just me. But anyways, good for you, Sean. All right, some more information from Elon, this time talking about the MCU1 Retrofit. Let me, if I could bring up the page here, I will show you guys what I'm talking about. I don't have my screens ready here.
And again, if you're an audio listener, you have to check out the YouTube video for the links and see what he's talking about.
Yes.
I love how the majority of our people are listeners, and you like showing.
Okay. All right, I have it up here on the screen for those.
Tracks, you know?
That's right.
Including myself, when I had the Model X, there was a lot of talk about the possibility of giving it MCU1 Retrofit. Now, when we talk about MCU, because there's still a lot of confusion on the internet as to what are you talking about MCU? I thought you were talking about Hardware 3. No,
The
those are
Marvel
two different
Cinematic
things.
Universe?
Right. Hardware 3 is the dedicated autopilot computer. It has nothing to do that drives the screen on your computer. The MCU is what Tesla calls the main control unit. Some people call it a media control unit. But it is the system that runs the navigation system, the HVAC, the radio, all that stuff. Anyways, so Model 3 has a new MCU in it, and it's run by an Intel Atom chip. Very nice and fast and responsive. They have upgraded Model S and X as of, I think it was about March or May of this year. I forget exactly when it was. Or sorry, last year. March or May of last year to that same chipset. So those are nice and fast and responsive. It's the older cars that could benefit from this upgrade because, you know, we don't get things like YouTube. When I say we, I'm just talking about people who still have those cars. Don't get YouTube, don't get the latest games, don't get Century Mode, don't get all these other things. So myself and other people have been pestering Tesla for like the longest time. Are you going to offer a retrofit for this thing? And Elon did say one time, yes, we will. Well, lo and behold, Elon got back on Twitter again and explained to some people that, let me just bring up the cost here. He says, he answered to someone named Olivier. He says, yes, the costs are a few $1,000s and it's more complex than a board swap. Bunch of connectors and antennas need to change. We can improve the speed a little bit with some software optimization, which might be enough for some people. And our friend Eric at the Tesla Inventory YouTube channel said, the issue I have is my MCU1 Autopilot 2 car doesn't have YouTube or some of the other games. Again, as I mentioned, no dashcam Sentry Mode, any updates on that. Also, I paid for FSD computer. That was 3 years ago. I've been told by service FSD isn't possible in my car yet. Elon said this is quite a thorny hardware problem. There are many different versions of MCU and autopilot computer and supporting hardware. Cars last much longer than phones. Hopefully, we'll be able to upgrade MCU1 and AP2 in a few months. So there's the latest update as to the possibility of upgrading those cars. Again, it's one of those situations. If you're interested in doing that, call a Tesla service center. Let them know. Hopefully, they'll put you on a list of some form or make note of it. But anyways, as soon as we find out definitively that this is going to happen, and I have some contacts in Tesla service, if something like that pops up, I will let you know. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll put it on Twitter. Thoughts? I mean, you guys don't have a Model S or S. It doesn't really affect you, but...
No, it's good.
Go ahead, Derek. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I think it's just good news that they're going to be able to figure it out. Although the Elon, I believe, and if I'm mistaken, certainly tell me, but I believe that even Elon was suggesting that maybe it's not worth it for some people to do that, but at least it can be an option for those that do want to jump in.
Yeah, he did say a couple $1,000, but I'm of the mind it's probably more than that. By the time you factor in labor and stuff, it's probably closer to $3,000 to do that, and it's not easy. My understanding, and I have talked to a tech about this, is that it's not just the center computer; it's actually the instrument cluster on those cars have to change too, because they're even though they're the same chipset, they're a different type of chipset. The older cars have a Tegra 2. NVIDIA Tegra 2 chip that runs the instrument cluster, and the MCU, the main computer screen media control unit, runs a Tegra 3. So even though they're essentially the same chipset, they're two different chips and they communicate with one another. So both, my understanding, as far as I've been told, that both have to be changed. It's not just good enough to change one computer. But we'll see. If anything changes, we'll let you know. All right.
One last point, Trev.
Please do. Yep.
Isn't the MCU1 the one that has a memory failure issue that's starting to pop up in some early cars?
Yes, we've talked about that before.
I'm just thinking that like kill two birds with one stone, because if you're close to the limit on that thing time expiring, and it looks like a lot of them are going to start to wear out, maybe that's part of the justification for why you would want to
that could be. Now, just to reiterate for some of you who don't know, there is some memory chips in the Teslas on those earlier cars that have a finite write limit to it, if you will, and Tesla has been really cranking up the logging on the cars, and for some reason there's a whole bunch of logging that's going in. I mean, there's guys that are experts in this kind of thing. I don't pretend to be an expert that's tearing these cars apart, but the guys who are the hackers who have rooted the cars have noticed that these cars are logging way too much data and doing it inefficiently, and what it's doing is it's prematurely killing these chips. So some people are starting to get the failures, and there's no chip retrofit for it. You have to change the whole motherboard, so you have to change it anyways. My understanding is that when they changed to the new chips, Eric, that's why Eric disappeared. He went and got his glasses. All right. So when they switched to the different chipset in the Model 3, and of course what they did in the current S and X, I don't believe they suffer from the same problem. I could be wrong, but you make a good point, and it's worth pointing out, of course, that if you have some of those older cars, that's probably one of the justifications. So, anyways, we'll leave it at that. Next piece of news here is that there was a lot of talk this past, probably the last couple of weeks about the federal tax credit in the U.S. getting extended. So that, I mean, as you know, right now, for Tesla anyways, that the federal tax credit ends at the end of this month, and there's no more. The phase out is physically complete for those guys. So there was some talk about extending the federal tax credit and limiting the tax credit. I think it was $7,000. Eric, you've been following this. They were talking about increasing it from 200,000 units to 600,000 units.
Right.
And the federal tax credit was possibly going to be dropped from $7,500 to $7,000. But anyways, the whole point is that looks like at the last minute, the whole thing was nerfed. So it's not happening. There are some tax credits that are still possible for some other Green Act things, solar panels, that type of thing. But as far as cars are concerned, it's not happening. There's no extension and stuff. Now, other manufacturers who haven't hit that 200,000 limit, hey, Bob's your uncle, you can still get those federal tax credits. But as far as Tesla's concerned, it's gone. I think GM is the other one that's affected by
Correct. This. Nissan's not far behind, as is Toyota. Well, the intriguing thing, so there's two things about this. I'll be very quick and very brief about it. The first is, thanks, Congress. Number two, and I mean that's all of sarcasm, every which way. And number two is, if you are in a state that does have state incentives, you could still get those applied. California being one of them, Colorado another, many others. So you could certainly get state incentives on top of that. I certainly agree with Elon that long term this won't hurt EV adoption, especially when it comes to Teslas, because in terms of the intrinsic value that you get with buying an electric vehicle. But here's an amazing statistic. Of all the vehicles sold in the last year, can you guess the percentage that were electric?
Not much.
2.
Yeah, I was going to say 2%.
I mean, when you think about the number of Model 3s, and all the different electric cars have been sold, that only counts for 2% of all vehicle sales in the last year. That number is insane. So I don't understand why they're not extending the program and offering some incentives. I mean, this has been bantered about for some months now. But given, and I'm going to be pseudo-political, given the state of this Congress, it's not surprising they couldn't get anything done. So I'll leave it at that.
Understood. And I've said it before, it's too early to kill incentives. There are other ways of incentivizing. I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, what you would do is you would cut back or eliminate subsidies on oil. Watch the gas prices go through the roof. That's enough incentive to get people to switch. But anyways, that's an ideal world. That's definitely not possible.
Well, it's also why like the foods that are healthier for you, that are not wheat-based, corn-based, et cetera, why they're more expensive because there's no subsidies that make that stuff cheaper.
Yeah, I know, and I understand that, and that's certainly one thing. But literally, the whole economy runs on oil, so you can't just switch overnight. It's just not possible. You can't switch the fleet. You can't switch to renewables overnight. This has to be a gradual thing. Anyways, that's beside the point. But the fact is that you still need to incentivize people because otherwise, I mean, look at it's going to sit at 2%. I mean, yes, it has been growing, but it needs to be bigger than 2%. It needs to be 50% or whatever the case may be. There are some countries, Norway, that do great things with incentives. And they're a great oil producer. They
can do the incentives because the money comes from them selling off the oil.
Exactly. So, yeah. But anyways, there's some political will and might over there that makes it happen. But unfortunately, in North America, and I'm talking about both countries that we talk about on a regular basis here, it's just not happening. So, all right, moving on. We got to move on here. Speaking of Sorry. Speaking of federal tax credit stuff, one of our moderators on the forum, Melinda, had some information to give us because she was having some difficulty with getting her federal tax credit for 2018, for her 2018 tax year when she bought her car, because the IRS came back and says, we don't have the 2 statement certificates from Tesla that cover these cars that you're asking about. So anyways, she went back and forth, and she finally got hold of the forms, and she has posted them on the forum. So if you're in a situation where the IRS is giving you a hard time with you claiming your federal tax credit in the U.S., and they're talking about this needing the certificate, why they wouldn't have the certificate, maybe it's just an officer that's having problems. I mean, the IRS should have these things. Anyways, I'll put a link in the video in the podcast description. You can go and get those forms. Hopefully it'll help you out with your tax situation. So make sure you talk to your accountant about that. Anyways, just an FYI for those of you who are affected by that. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled FEYNLAB, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla. We were meant for each other. Lightning round time. We have to get into questions. Today has been a banner day for questions. We got so many, we can't cover all of them, but we figured we're going to try our hand here at doing a lightning round and going to plow through them as quickly as we can. And so having said that, let's just dive right in. First question comes from our friend James. He says, do autopilot cameras have any special polarizing filters to deal with sun glare, either direct or shine from a wet road? Now, the answer is, I'm not sure about that. But if you do look at the Sentry, what I'm getting at here is that if you look at the Sentry mode or the dash cam footage out of your car, you'll notice that the colors are off. And I think what Tesla's doing is that they're tuning those cameras for autopilot usage. So they're doing some colorization filters and stuff like that, so you can actually see the lines on the road, see the things that it needs to see, rather than being, your usual dash cam that sees true color or vivid color. Now, as far as polarizing, that might be part of it. I don't know. So that's definitely what's going on in there. So anyways, for those of you who want crystal clear dash cams, well, you kind of have to look at third party, but it's good enough for the times when you need it. I thought when I switched to my Model 3 that I would put a dash cam in my car, and so far I have not. I've actually been okay with the dash cam that's in my car. Now, in the Model X, because I had an MCU1 computer that couldn't write files without corrupting, well, that was a different issue altogether. Hence my want of a MCU upgrade. But anyway, so I don't have that car anymore, so it's really not an issue.
Just
Ian, that's the reason I put a dash cam in mine. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know if you guys have got this since you've had 40.2.1. A couple of days I've had sun glare warnings, like telling me that autopilot or lane change might not be available because there's sun glare detected on one of the side cameras. Have either of you seen that?
Nope, I haven't.
I have not seen that. I have seen, when the cameras get dirty. I think that's a relatively new thing that Tesla's added in the cars because they're just...
I think that's a 40.2 thing. I never saw it before. So just saying that's, it sort of speaks to the question. Obviously, glare is a factor, and right now they're
I
trying to
wonder
deal
if
with
you're getting it, Ian, because it's reflection of the light off the snow.
or the top of my head.
All things are possible.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we talked last week, because remember somebody had asked us about, we discussed about FSD in the snow and how if we lose the cameras, you don't get FSD, you don't even get TAC, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So anyways, and that ties into a question that somebody else brings us here. Anyways, next question comes from Tim. He says, are there any updates on Gigafactory 1? It was supposed to be the world's largest building, but it seems they've stopped expanding it. Yes, 2020 is the year that Tesla says it's supposed to be fully complete. I think what happened, and I don't have any inside information here, but I think Tesla has built it out to where their needs are at the time. But we have Model Y coming, we have Cybertruck coming, we have Semi coming. All of these cars are going to be using this new 2170 cell. I'm going to put money on this that sometime this coming year, 2020, early part, first half, you're going to see some dirt being moved over in that desert. So that's my answer to that. All right. Let's see here. Oh, this one comes from Frank. He says 2 questions. Will the wheel specs be the same for the Model Y as the Model 3? As in, would I be able to keep my set of wheels and transfer them to the Y? Ian?
Okay, well, mostly is the answer. It's going to have the same PCD, pitch circle diameter, or bolt pattern, as most people commonly know it. I'm almost certain it's going to have the same hub spec. Why would they change that? Wouldn't make any sense. The only unknown is, well, there's 2 things. One would be the offset, because even just between a standard Model 3 and a performance Model 3, there's a very slight difference in offset. Because the Model Y is a physically larger vehicle, if they just bump the fenders out slightly using the same chassis, it's possible they're going to use a lower offset to move those wheels a little further out. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Last thing to think about is the load rating, and this gets hugely neglected. In aftermarket wheels, most wheels with the bolt pattern for Model 3 support 690 kilos per corner. That's way more than enough for Model 3. It only needs 630. But we know Model Y is going to be a heavier vehicle to start with trailer towing capacity, all this other stuff. Is 690 going to be enough? I don't know. We have to wait and see what the axle ratings are in the vehicle. So keep all that in mind. But in theory, yeah, I'd say there's a good chance you might be able to use them. Note that the tire sizes are different, though. They have much taller tires on the Y. So you'll be able to keep your wheels, maybe, but the tires definitely not.
No. Okay. He also has a second question. Is there any way to adjust the 2 white lines on the backup camera? They're not properly centered and comes up annoying every time I back up. No, there's no user serviceable part as far as that's concerned. If you're having a problem with calibration, make an appointment with Tesla Service. They might be able to calibrate that camera for you. I know there's a autopilot forward-facing camera calibration that they do if they ever change the windshield. I've seen them. They have a stand with a calibration chart and stuff that they use. So anyways, if that's a problem, jump in. All right, next question comes from Kaylee. Can we ask Elon about a plow attachment for the Cybertruck? And the answer is yes. I'm sorry, we're being facetious.
Sure. So
we can ask.
You can ask whatever you want. If you get an answer, be prepared to have your phone blow up and die within 7 minutes. And yeah, he's pretty responsive. I so far have had no luck getting responses, but I'm also generally leaving the man alone because he's kind of busy. But yeah, if it's 4:00 in the morning, he's having a tweet storm. Hey, you never know. You might strike out.
You never know. He did say recently, he did respond to somebody that they were going to have some quote sick attachments for the Cybertruck. So, all right, which leads us into the next question from Dion. Do you think that Tesla with the Cybertruck with the trailer might have a motor on it and batteries? Because once you start hauling range, will probably drop more than half. And the answer is yes. You can expect your range to drop significantly if you're towing anything. As far as putting a motor in there, no, not going to happen. Next question comes from Stefano. Has anybody thought of ever talked about a custom trailer with a power wall for backup, extra tank, in quotes, with the possibility of charging by braking or some sort of resistance dynamo in the trailer? Sorry for my English. I'm from Italy.
I tend to think that because of if you're thinking about a power pack, those things they weigh a lot. So the amount of energy you're losing trying to tow it to then hopefully then be able to use it as I think the loss is too great. I think the loss is too great if you're towing that much weight behind you.
In any kind of hilly region, I'm with you. Yeah, it wouldn't pay off.
And also the aerodynamics. You got a big boxy battery pack in the back of your car. I mean, you think have Trevor tell you the story of how it was when he actually put 2 bikes in the back of his Model X and how much range he lost from bicycles. Okay,
yeah, we've talked about that.
Now put a power pack in the back of your car. See how that goes.
So I don't think Tesla's going to do it, but if you want some interesting information, Google AC Propulsion's T. What was it? What was their yellow car called? The T01.
Just
The
T0.
T0.
Straight up.
Because that little car, they actually did that. There's a little trailer. If you Google it, they built a little trailer with extra batteries in it. So, anyways, fun fact for you.
JB too had this cool. Do you ever see his Project 924 Porsche that he did that had the little trailer with the generator that would charge the batteries?
Yeah. So it's been done before, but Tesla's not doing that. Let's see here. Bob asks, do you think you could ever use your platform? What, our platform? Twitter, I guess. To promote with Tesla using Tesla cams and Sentry mode to help with Amber Alerts and kidnappings. Car cameras could be tied with an Amber Alert. You know what? That's a really good question. It has been brought up before on Twitter and stuff. I think it's possible to do something like that, but again, it's a matter of priorities with Tesla, and who knows where it sits on the whiteboard, even if it exists or not. But again, goes back to what we said earlier. If it's important to you, tag Elon. Might answer
it sounds like, in a way, it's like the network of the Ring cameras, the doorbells, and all that sort of stuff, all sort of being tied together. That police can use those video feeds to track criminals and what have you. Could they then use the same sort of technology from the video captured from our vehicles?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, anything's possible.
All right, that might be more of a possibility when Robotaxi comes online.
Yeah, who knows?
Than it is now.
Okay. Next question comes from Paul. He says, "Hi, chaps. Thanks for all your hard work on the podcast." Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I'm hoping your audience might be able to answer this one. He says, "If you buy an existing inventory Tesla, do you get a referral code URL to share with others?" The answer is yes.
Yes.
He says, "I bought my Model S in July 2018. I don't have a referral code in either my app or my Tesla account. No matter what method I try to contact this about, it just feels like shouting into the void." Well, I certainly feel for you, Paul. Sometimes shouting out into the void with Tesla is all we get sometimes too. Again, it's one of those things you should send an email to. Well, you don't mention where you're from. You say chaps. Maybe you're in England. Anyways, in at least in North America, I think the email address is. Let me look it up here.
I also wondered, did he buy this from a private seller or did he buy it from Tesla? Because if you buy it from Tesla, referral code, no questions asked. If you buy it from a private seller, that might be part of the problem.
Yeah, that's part of that. That could be the thing. There is a process if you haven't done it yet. Use your Tesla. Well, I'm assuming you have access to your. Gosh. Log into your Tesla account. If your car's there, there's a thing that says where you can transfer transfer the car over. If that hasn't been done yet, that's part of the problem. Who knows? He doesn't mention whether you can access the car through the app and stuff. But anyways, again, send an email to Tesla, call them, try and get it escalated somehow.
Support at tesla.com.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next question comes from Fred. He says, TAC. Question is from TAC. He says, when it's engaged, it always defaults to the maximum speed allowed. I'd rather have it select my current speed. Do you have any information on any plans to change the TAC behavior, probably along with a resume function? He says, yes, I know you can use the scroll to adjust the speed, but that can be cumbersome. It defaults to the maximum allowed speed. There is a setting in Autopilot where you can set the...
If it's relative or absolute. If it's
relative. Yeah, I have mine set to 5 or 10 kilometers over, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I do 5 miles over.
Yeah. Double check those settings. If you have to, set it back to 0 and then reset it again and see if that helps. Do know that, at least on the Model 3, when you see the speedometer, not the speedometer, but the current speed limit sign that you have in your screen and you're set a little higher, whatever, you're just tapping on that will actually reduce your cruise control speed up to that limit.
I'm sorry. Something to note here, and I know this from experience. If, let's say, the speed limit is 65 posted, and let's say my car wants to do 70. If traffic's going 40 and I try to engage TAC, I'm not hitting 70. I'm going with what traffic is. So if your vehicle is traveling slower than the posted limit, and if you were to, and it shows you on your screen what TAC would then take you to if you were to engage it, you're going to be traveling at the relative speed to what traffic is. I think the scenario he's referring to here is when it's
open road,
and in which case I get that, but that's where you play with your settings for a little bit. I mean, if you want to go 40 kilometers an hour, but the speed limit is 60, I can see where that's sort of cumbersome. But I mean, in the majority of use cases, you're going to be going the appropriate speed based on traffic.
Yeah.
And another thing to note is that only applies when you're below what TAC wants to take you to. So let's say you're driving at a 65 mile an hour zone and it's set to take you to 70. If you're going 65, it'll it'll then take you on up to 70. However, if you're going 74, any speed above what its floor is, it will dial in exactly. It just keeps you where you are. So above what it's recommending, it'll give you exactly what's on the speedometer, but it's only when it's below that it'll try to take you up.
Okay. Well, I hope that helps. Next question comes from Carlo. He says, how is full self-driving and the robotaxi going to work if the weather really gets bad? Also, buy Tesla stock. Thanks for the show. You're welcome, Carlo. Thanks for watching and listening. Well, we talked about that on the last episode where we talked about losing the cameras and how is that going to work with FSD. Nobody's going to go around and lick all the cameras for you and stuff when you're operating your fleet. These are things that have to be worked out. So we don't have the answer to that yet, Carlo, but we had a great discussion about it on the last podcast. So encourage you to go and listen to that if you haven't seen it. All right, next question comes from Tony. He says, I leased a standard range Model 3, not a Plus, in 2019 in June of this year, replacing my great but technology lacking Ford Focus electric. I leased the car because I didn't know if I would enjoy the car as much as my FFE. Enjoy is an understatement. I love this car. Unfortunately, I did not get autopilot or FSD, trying to save money on a car that I was unsure how it would work out. Of course, now I want to get AP and FSD, but I have a question. If I purchase AP...
question.
I know, this is a really long question. So the bottom line here is if I purchase AP or FSD now, will it follow me after the lease, or did I lose that feature at the end of the lease? If I lose it, I will wait, and that will be unfortunate. So the answer is it will not follow you.
Correct.
Really?
It does not follow.
When you buy those, you're buying it for the car. It's not for the person. So that's always it's a big deal.
Right. Sorry, I misinterpreted. Yeah, because I'm thinking he wants to buy the car out at the end of the lease.
If you keep the car, then yes, you can. But if you're
but it's tied to the car. It's not tied to the person.
Right. Correct.
It's just like supercharging. It's tied to the car, not the person.
And in most cases, Model 3 leases are going to be turned in.
Yeah.
Well, at least in the U.S. that's the thing, right? Because Elon's made a case about this. The reason they don't want people to buy the cars is they want them back for the robotaxi fleet,
right? To reuse them, yeah,
right.
So just so we're clear on the answer, if you keep the car after the lease, yes, you're going to have it. But if you turn the car in, nope, it's gone.
It is, and largely when it comes to leasing vehicles, it's almost a fool's errand to do anything to the car, because you're not going to get the money back when you turn the lease in. You either have to undo the changes if they're physical, like if you wrap it or do something else, you usually have to take that stuff off.
It's a sunk cost.
Right. Or now in the software, it's just stuck in the car, which means you're spending money that you're going to use for less than 3 years. It doesn't make any financial sense at all when you're doing it through a lease. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question comes from Aaron. He says, it's such a pleasure listening to the three of you discuss Tesla and the industry in general each week. Keep it up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sorry to hear that.
How did the three of you meet to decide to start a podcast? Also, your question... oh, that's something else here. Eric, I met in Florida, 4 years ago now?
No.
3 years ago?
It was 3 years ago.
Yeah. And Ian, I met at a... where was it, Ian? It was at the the Ottawa thing, wasn't it?
Prison. No, that was...
I love how Trevor's 5 seconds behind this entire thing.
Prison. Yeah, we met in prison. No, we're just good friends. We have a lot more friends in Florida.
Oh, you dropped the soap.
We did. No, that was actually, we started chatting right after I camped out. That was around the time you started the forum.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I signed up early days, like a month or two in. I don't know. We just started chatting back and forth about something. And,
I'm going to have to look at your user number and tell you exactly where you are in the list.
For the record, I befriended Trevor's wife before I befriended Trevor.
Yeah, but that's Beverly. If you know my wife, you'll understand. Her nickname is Bubbly.
Yeah.
So,
You're welcome.
Next question comes from Gabriel. After I made the mistake of letting my wife drive the Model 3, oh, I feel for you. I now drive a Volvo diesel. My question is, how can you go back to a Volvo? I don't get it. So he says, my question is, do you guys think I can ever get my car back? Divorce is not an option. Love the podcast. I appreciate
my favorite.
There's a great commercial now. I want to say it's for a Dodge Ram. Or GM, I forget which one, where a guy buys he and his wife their own trucks, and he goes out, they both go out, and she's like, I love it. And he goes, no, that's mine. I love it. Right. That's now her truck. So this car is now your wife's car. Congratulations. You can borrow
our good friend Earl also suffers from this problem.
Yeah.
His wife takes the car all the time. Actually, my wife drove my car for the very first time. And yes, as she did with the Model X, the energy graph was like Mount Everest. She
Called
had
it.
fun with that car.
Called it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, she's got a
yeah,
love
it's
for it.
just
You don't.
yeah, you're just gonna have to buy another car. You're
Yep.
just gonna have to buy the car. I'm actually considering that. If I actually get the Cybertruck, I might make that my daily driver and get rid of the gas car, and Bev can drive the P3.
You know what? Model Y is coming out next year.
Yep.
Can't justify another car like that. I'll pay this one off and then give it to the wife. We'll see.
Not you. I'm talking our listeners. Come on. I'm telling you.
Yes, of course. I know,
Gabriel. There you go.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's all about me, right? All right. Next
So-
question comes from Matthew. Matthew asks, "Hey Trevor, what made you think Apple Music is coming to Tesla? Any updates?" Well, I have little birdies, and I heard that at the Cybertruck event. So, no ETA. Notice that I didn't tell anybody when it was coming. I just said that it's something that they were actually working on. We do know that there are several more entertainment boxes coming, Disney and a few others. That's been found by some of the hackers out there.
I know.
So anyways, Apple Music, as far as I'm told, is something that they're working on, but I don't have an ETA on that. All right, next question comes from Kim. Hey guys, for Canadian owners over your Model 3 SR Plus, hey, how do you know when Tesla will start sending out emails for premium connectivity in Canada? Also heated rear seats. Again, I don't know anybody in the Canadian groups anywhere online. I've talked to lots of friends and stuff that have anything as far as connectivity is concerned showing up in their account. So I think it's just a matter of we just haven't gotten around to you guys yet. So enjoy it while it lasts.
Do you think they can buy heated seats? I don't think so. I think the seats in their car don't have the coils in them, right?
No, that's not true. The seats do have the coils in them, but Tesla has not enabled them through a software update.
Are you 100% sure on that, Trev? Because I thought in early days of SRs, they were all coming with the same seats, and then at some point the elements disappeared. Don't quote me on that.
They may have changed things, but there's some confusion because this is what Tesla does typically. When they bring out something, they don't always change the parts right away. They just disable things through software. It's just one of those things. So the only way to really find out is to actually remove the cushion out of the back of the car, and there's two connectors, one on each side, and that's for the seat heater. So if you don't have those connectors that are actually plugged in, then yeah, you don't have a heated seat. If you do, well, you have a heated seat, but you can't turn it on because it's not part of the premium interior on the SR Plus. All right, David asks, has anyone measured the power drain from the GetJeda USB hub with nothing attached? Just the consumption of the hub itself. It's probably not that high, but since it's left connected 24/7, it could add up. I haven't gotten a straight answer from GetJeda. That's a very good question. It's something I may ask them. As far as I understand, the drain, if there's anything, is negligible. My car has the GetJeda hub in it, and I have Sentry Mode turned on all the time with my SSD, and it's negligible. It's basically not an issue as far as I'm concerned. So.
If you have a laptop and you have a USB device plugged into it and your laptop is sleeping, is that USB device drawing power?
It depends on what it is.
Right. Okay.
And does the operating system turn off power to the USB hubs?
Right.
Some devices, some laptops do, some laptops don't. That's why some people can close the lid and charge their phone off their laptop.
So that's my question. The question is, if the car basically goes to sleep and has to be woken up, is while it's sleeping, if you don't have Sentry Mode, like you said, if there's nothing plugged into it, is it really drawing power? If the answer is yes, it's drawing power, it's such little amount of energy. My guess is you could have your car charged to 90% on January 1st, not touch your car for a year, leave that thing plugged in, go back into your car January 1st of 2021 and go, well, I can actually still drive to Atlanta. It's going to be such a tiny amount of power. It's ridiculous. I would suspect that because it's just a standard USB device, if it is drawing anything, I still think it's not drawing anything when the car
milliwatts, if any.
My answer is like quantum mechanics. If you're observing it,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but we don't know.
Yeah, is the cat dead or alive? I don't know. Are you watching the cat?
Well, that's right.
Schrodinger's cat?
Let's see here. Moving on here, because someone was asking about the power boost thing. We already talked about that. Okay, this is a good one here. Marco, he says, about Tesla's streaming service, at some point, didn't Elon say that those who bought the performance upgrade package when it was a thing in July, before it became included with the price of the car, also dropped from those people who get free streaming for life? So he's talking about the connectivity. Now, I went back and looked at Tesla's website. And if I can bring this up, there it is. Okay. I went back, and unfortunately you can't see the top of my screen here, but I went to the web archive and went back till I could find a change, and the earliest I could find or the last time I saw the change was in May 27th of 2019, is the first time that Tesla made a mention of the premium connectivity of 1 year included. Prior to that, if I back up one entry date, come on, May 20th is the last time that Archive grabbed it. There is no mention in the premium interior about the 1 year connectivity. So that seems to be the break point. You're absolutely right. Tesla did mention that connectivity was not mentioned as far as 1 year, and at some point, it looks like it's sometime late May when they made the change. So some of you might be grandfathered, some of you may not be. It's just one of those cases. I think the clear indicator, if you're in the US, if you look at your About screen on the Tesla or you go into your Tesla account, it'll say whether you have connectivity. If it says your connectivity expires or renews on a such and such a date, you're not grandfathered. That's basically what it is.
Go to your software button, you'll see it there.
I thought it was pretty clear, wasn't it? To the end of July, like if your car was ordered up until July 31st.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of cutoff date and stuff, but I just went on the Archive to see in the configurator where the mention was that when it went away, and that was whatever that date was, there, May 27th or so. Okay. Let me say here, Silikos, if I pronounce that properly.
Before we move on, really quick, Ian, it's not when you ordered it, it's when you took delivery.
Yeah.
Ooh, really?
When you took delivery, when you actually had possession of your car is when it counts, not when you ordered it. Because you could order it and might not deliver for 8 weeks.
Right, but
when the car delivered, had to deliver by a certain date in July.
I can look this up again. It's really weird. When I was in LA when I read all this, because there was a whole Twitter discussion on it, and it was my interpretation of what was posted on the site was it was when you purchased the car or committed to purchase it. In other words, like you put down your full $4,000 or whatever. But no, you could be right, Eric. I don't know. We have to investigate.
There are times when Tesla will put a hard cutoff date as to when you're ordered, and that's where you can get your price protection. Protects you against price increases and stuff. So. But, as we've said before, what Tesla giveth, Tesla can taketh, right? All right, next question comes from Silikos. He says, how do you charge a Tesla if you live in an apartment and you park at a random spot out in the neighborhood? That's a really challenging question. I totally get it. Not everybody has access to chargers. He says Tesla's superchargers are only used for trips. Well, not technically. You can use them if you're in a pinch. Yeah. You don't want to make a habit of using it all the time, especially if you do a high rate of charge, because it's not good for your battery. It'll actually degrade it. And Tesla, because they're on the hook for the warranty, if you do it too much, they will actually throttle you. Mm-hmm. So, urban chargers, they're slower, but most people, that's what they have at home. I would suspect that most people have 240 volt, 40 to 50 amps, whatever. That's what I have, 32 amps. And that's plenty for most people. I mean, doing it in a public parking space, with level 2, if you have to, you have to. But you can use the superchargers. I know for a fact that here in the Toronto area, Tesla built about 9 superchargers because we have such a high concentration of condos that they knew that there was a huge influx of Model 3s coming in, and this was as of last year, that they had to do something for it. So those people, I know quite a few of those people use the superchargers. So feel free, you can use them. Just don't do a high level rate of charge all the time.
I will give him some suggestions because I'm someone who had to deal with this when I first got my car in 2018. So 2 things. One is if there are chargers reasonably close to where you live, feel free to plan around it. So if it's a Wednesday evening, you want to charge your car for a couple hours, get some dinner, go back into your car. That's great. If it's a greater distance than that, see if you can get rides from someone you live with, a family member, a roommate, a neighbor, or something like that. But also, when you are going out somewhere, just kind of plan around it. Like, okay, we're going to go to this movie. We're going to go see this show. We're going to go to this dinner. Try to find chargers in the area. The great thing is Tesla vehicles are all programmed to find chargers that are compatible with the car. But you can also use third-party apps. ChargePoint has stuff. EVgo has locations now that they're going to partner with Tesla. PlugShare. There are many of them that are essentially an aggregate of user information that lets people know where you can charge your car. And with ChargePoint, you're able to, from the app, filter out only stations that are free for your car. So you may have to get a ChargePoint account. You may be able to, you can use your phone or a key card that you can get free that allows you to swipe those stations to activate them. But you can find out where there's free charging for your car. So there's many ways to do it. I will recommend going to the Tesla Owners Online Forum, and you'll find great resources there from all kinds of users who can give you recommendations. And based on your currency, you're certainly in Europe. There's, I'm sure, plenty of our European listeners or people on the forum can help you find good locations in your area.
There is also something else called destination charging. So if you might want to talk to your employer or someone nearby, because if you're sitting at work and your car's sitting there for 95% of the time not being used, you're there for 7 or 8 hours, take advantage of it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Plug in the car, let it charge there. You don't need to charge at home, you can do it there. What's the difference? You charge at home, you don't charge at work, or you do it the other way around?
That's what
Perfectly fine.
I do.
That's what Ian does.
Hey, maybe even your employer has an outlet in the parking lot that you can use to at least use your standard 110 and plug in.
Well, this is a cool thing. Being in Europe, because he's quoting in euros there, everything is 240, right? So even a common outlet at 240, you get some pretty decent charge. Much better than here.
Yeah. Yep. All right, next question comes from Aaron. He says, if the public suddenly became aware of the significant advantage of Teslas over other vehicles on the market and demand or orders for Tesla skyrocket. See, I said Tesla wrong. Sorry, I'm turning into Ben Sullins here.
You're the worst.
We love you, Ben. Sorry, buddy. I like to tease him how he pronounces Tesla. For Tesla skyrocket over the next 6 to 12 months, do you think that Tesla could use that demand to attract capital investment and scale up production enough to avoid drowning in backlog? Or would they be forced to jack prices? Well, two things. They have increased the prices of the Model 3 recently. They've gone up $500. And second of all, Tesla doesn't need to attract capital by doing any investment and stuff. They can go to the markets anytime they want. I mean, in case you haven't noticed, the stock has been going crazy for the last couple of days. So, yeah, I'm not worried about Tesla as far as
How many
that's
shares
concerned.
does this guy have? 0.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm hoping, all indications seem to be Tesla's pretty quiet and stuff. I think fourth quarter is going to be pretty good, but we'll know in early January. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the month, they'll announce... Well, shortly after the end of the month, they'll announce their delivery and their production numbers, and then financials typically come a month later. But if it's good news, they tend to push it up a little sooner. So the indicator is if they announce that they're going to have their conference call within a week or two after the quarter ends, then you know it's good news. So that's generally how Tesla operates. All right, next question comes from Daniel. It says, Model 3 let me start over. Model 3 mud flaps or splash guards in Canada, ? Any way to get them sooner rather than waiting? How are they planning on notifying people? Weather has already gotten bad, and these would be useful sooner rather than later. I would agree. Tesla has told me that if you want them, you have to call them. Priority for these kits are being given to new owners taking delivery. However, they seem to be backlogged or backordered right now, so don't expect them until early January. Listen, if it's such an important thing for you, just do like I did. I went on Amazon or whatever, or any of the sponsors and stuff, and you can buy a set, $30-$35, put them on yourself. Matter of fact, the ones that I have, and I've seen the ones that Tesla puts on, at least in the front, they're little itty-bitty things, and the ones that I have are a little bit bigger. So either take your pick. I mean, it's not a lot of money. It's good insurance. I mean, Ian, for example, I mean, he knows what it's like to get pitted rocker panels, right? He had his painted. So,
yeah. Had nothing to do with pitting. That was
I know, but it is a thing.
Take a blasting. So no, these things are a godsend.
Exactly.
True story. I got my Amazon ones. I'm going to put them on tonight because I've been procrastinating.
Oh, they're super easy to put on. No big deal.
It's
So I would highly recommend if that's don't wait for Tesla. Just go out and buy a set and be done with it. It's not
Or move to Florida.
that's the answer to everything, right? Yeah. All right. Let me see here. There is one more question from Don. He says, "How do I get the Sentry Cam to work in my Model 3?"
Google it.
Google it. No.
No, you can. Tesla has some good tutorials on how to do that. If you're also really, really stumped, you can visit a service center or really awesome resource. I think the guys know this. It's called the Tesla Owners Online Forum. You can go to teslaownersonline.com.
Trevor, makes videos and things.
Yeah. He knows some stuff.
We have a YouTube channel. Yeah.
There's a video. Also, there's a really awesome video about the HAL 3000, but we won't.
HAL 9000.
9000. I can't. Yeah.
That's okay. All right. Well, that's our lightning round. That brought us to the end of the questions and pretty much to the end of the podcast. So it gives us opportunity for these guys to plug whatever the heck they want before we kick out of here. Eric, since you're on the screen, you go first.
Sure. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone who's tuned into the show this past year. We certainly enjoy talking about Tesla with you guys, but more often we really appreciate the comments, the feedback, both positive and negative commentary. We do this show because we love this community and we really are honored to be a part of it. So thank you to all of you. Many thanks to also the new followers I've encountered on Twitter this year. Some of you have been very cordial on a number of different reasons. I've had a lot of change in my life in the last year. Things have been sort of interesting to say in the last year. But I'm very thankful to be able to share my journey with all of you, complete strangers out there in the universe. But I do want to take back a moment to just reflect on what this holiday season means to me. I'm someone who's very charitable with my time, my energy throughout the year. And I'm someone who believes that this season more than any other, it's important that we continue to show love and respect and consideration for others, especially for those who don't have as much as we do. So if you can find a way during this time of the year to give additional funds to a nonprofit you support, to find a shelter or some kind of organization in your community that could use volunteers, whether it's a pet shelter, homeless shelter, if you want to read to kids, just anything you can do to give back to those who don't have what many of us do have. That I think is the spirit of the season. That'd be wonderful to see. So from my family, from our family to your family, have a wonderful, prosperous holiday season, no matter what it is you celebrate. Boxing Day, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever it may be.
Festivus
for the rest of us. I hope you guys all have a wonderful holiday season, and thank you.
Well said. Thanks, Eric. How about you, Ian? What do you want to say?
Well, ditto on absolutely everything Mr. Camacho just said. That was beautifully said, and I couldn't say any more. I mean, especially now when we live in a world where social media and anything goes, and people just say what they want. I mean, take a little time to say something nice to someone. I mean, I find that goes such a long way, and it's such a refreshing. I feel very blessed that the little community I'm in on Twitter with all of the Tesla folks, we have such great dialogue, and people are generally so respectful, and it's a great little community, but it's this little isolated bubble. So go out of your way and try and extend that warmth maybe to some of the other communities that you're on online. A little bit goes a long way, I find, with that. So that was just one thought to add to everything Eric's just said. And on the topic of giving, just a little shout out. I myself gave a little chunk of money to what I think is a great cause coming up. There's university down in the southern U.S. It's starting up this little project called Cranky Uncle. And what it is, it's the gamification on how to educate people on sort of false ideas, or FUD, if you will, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about climate change. So what they're doing is they're going to create a little game, and you'll be able to download it as an app onto your phone, and you can go through this. It's kind of like basically a skill testing thing where it teaches you to identify false concepts or basically misinformation on climate change. So when you encounter people in real life, you're better equipped to sort of discuss the thing with them. And as one of the founding sponsors, I'm actually going to be a character in the game. So,
oh, cool,
nice. Mad Hungarian character, yeah, talking about electric cars in the games. So I'll update people as we go, as that comes to life. And other than that, well, if you are looking to support some other causes, there is the Mad Hungarian Evolver available on teespring.com, a portion of which goes to fund Plug-in America, l'AVEC, l'Association aux véhicules électriques de Québec, and other EV organizations here in Canada. So you can find that in the show notes and get yourself a t-shirt, much like the weapons of mass adoption I'm wearing right now, my little hoodie. And then finally, if you're looking for any kind of technical advice on wheels, tires, or the odd other thing that I occasionally know a tiny bit about, you can look me up on Tesla Owners Online. The handle there is Mad Hungarian, and I'm happy to help in any which way I can. And also on Twitter, private messages are open, so you can hit me up there, and any way I can help, glad to.
Awesome. Well, I guess that leaves me. I just want to say thank you, because this is the last show of the year, and we've had such a great time doing this podcast, and these guys and our, the occasional guests that come on. We have such a great time. This year has just been crazy. I mean, all kinds of crazy growth. I mean, the forum's growing. Twitter is about to explode. I'll talk about that here in a second. And just the community has just been blossoming like crazy. I mean, we've been very fortunate. We went to a couple different Tesla events this year. We get to meet lots of different people. And it's just such a great community, and the people are really nice. Matter of fact, yesterday I had to do some stuff for my other business, and I went to an Apple store, and one of the employees recognized me, came up, "Hey man, I watch your videos and stuff." And I said, "Do you have a Tesla?" He says, "Yeah, I have a Model 3." I said, "Well, you must talk these people his ear off." He says it's kind of funny because once they find out, they ask me all the questions. So he was talking about that. So anyway, it's really nice. I mean, the community is growing everywhere. I went and picked up my wife tonight, and I saw 3 other Model 3s picking up people. So it's growing like crazy. A friend of mine just picked up his Model 3 yesterday, and I have a friend of mine who's a big YouTuber. He's picking up his on Monday. So anyways, it's super exciting, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been following us and stuff, who give us the good ratings. If this is your first time listening to the podcast and you like it, hey, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's where you're watching it. And if you're listening it to, on one of the other platforms, maybe like iTunes or something like that, go down there, give us a good review, whatever, thumbs up, thumbs down, I don't care, whatever. Every little bit helps. I mean, we put a lot of effort into this, and we have a lot of fun and stuff. We try to keep it lightheaded. Or lighthearted, not lightheaded.
Sometimes both.
Freudian slip. Yeah, a little Freudian slip there. Yeah. And, that's the whole point, is just to keep it fun and not quite so serious and stuff, and just give what we know and love to answer questions and stuff. So with that, I also want to mention again, because I haven't mentioned it on the YouTube thing, but I'm about to surpass 50,000 followers on my Twitter account. That's Tesla Owners Online. So in celebration of that, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. Ooh. So the great guys at Tasmanian are going to be giving away a cooler. That's the cooler that fits in the bottom rear trunk of the Model 3. The guys at Tesla Bros are going to be giving away a Chrome Delete kit, and our good friends at Jet are going to give us away a USB hub. So some lucky winner could be as early as probably a couple of days. It looks like I'm about 140, 130 followers away from hitting that mark. So once I do that, I'm going to do a live draw, and we'll pick some kind of lucky winner from somewhere in the followers, completely at random, and that person will receive all 3 of those gifts. So if you haven't followed me, just hop over to Twitter and just look up Model 3 Owners and get on there so you get a chance to win all 3 of these wonderful prizes. So I want to say thank you to those 3 companies for supplying that. I mean, they just reached out. It's pretty awesome.
I'm not far behind. 1,121.
Keep it up, man. Hey, we all started with somewhere.
Yeah, I just rolled over 2,000 myself. I was kind of blown away by that. It was like,
exactly.
Wow.
And it's always exciting. It's fun to reach out and meet different people. So with that, don't forget to follow us on the forum, and that's TeslaOwnersOnline.com. And if you want to follow me on there, the handle's TrevP. And with that, we'll say thank you to everybody. Let's not forget our great sponsors, the guys at Duliban Insurance, Fine Lab Ceramic Coatings, and the wonderful guys at EvanX, who make the great Tesla accessories. And we'll have more to say about them sometime early in January. So with that, we'll leave you, and have a happy holidays, everyone, and safe New Year. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you later.
Aloha.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonne année.